All right, so thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Jazz Keeler, and I'm very honored to be helping out with Griffin Art Project's virtual programs this fall. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Griffin Art Projects is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Stolo nations. Griffin is very honored and grateful to undertake our work here. For those of you who haven't visited our gallery yet, we are open on Saturdays from 9 to 5 p.m. in North Vancouver, and our current exhibition, Now Bulletin, curated by David McWilliam, features the archive, collection, and works of eminent Vancouver artist Garry Neil Kennedy, who was the president of the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design in Halifax for 23 years. Coincidentally, I am actually joining you from Halifax, Nova Scotia today, and I'd like to also begin by acknowledging that I am on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and I'm very grateful to undertake my work here. Before I introduce Martha, I'd just like to mention that you can see us, but we cannot see or hear you. But we'd love to invite you to get in touch with us and each other using the chat option. And there will also be a question and answer session with Martha at the end of her talk. So do feel free to type your questions anytime throughout the presentation into the Q&A option, which is actually separate from the chat. I'm very honored to introduce today's presenter, Martha Wilson. Currently based in New York City, Martha is a pioneering feminist artist and gallery founder whose innovative photographic and video works explore her female subjectivity through role-playing, costume transformations, and invasions of other people's personae. Wilson completed her Bachelor of Arts degree at Wilmington College in Ohio and her graduate studies at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Wilson taught at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design before moving to New York City in 1974. 2 years later, she founded Franklin Furnace, an artist-run space that champions the exploration, promotion, and preservation of artist books, installation art, video, online, and performance art. Martha is still helping run the organization as the founding director emerita. So thank you so much for Martha for joining us and presenting today. And I will pass the spotlight over to you.
Thank you, Jazz, for your introduction and for helping me to organize my thoughts for this event. I am in Brooklyn, New York, and I am in my home. You can see my home behind me now. But I would like to launch into the slides immediately. The slides come from the early 70s when I was at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design teaching English. And this first slide is a work, it's actually the first work of visual art that I ever created called Breast Forms Permutated. All the conceptual artists of the day were permutating their ideas. So I decided to permutate something that is limitless breast forms. And I happen to know that all these boobs are from the art college because the women at Dalhousie University, I also asked women from the English department, wore brassieres. And so they had strap marks. And I didn't want strap marks in the finished work. So I no longer know whose boobs belong to what people. Although a volunteer came forward a couple of years ago and said that she was one of the sets of boobs. I moved to Canada from Ohio. I was going to college at Wilmington College, Ohio, Quaker College. I'd gone to a Quaker elementary school, Quaker high school. I was raised a Quaker. My mother's family was Quaker. Richards Jardin and I graduated in 1969. Richards did not want to be drafted into the United States Army and fight the Vietnam War. And I got into graduate school at Dow and he got into graduate school at NASCAD. And we thought it was a sign from above that we should move to Canada. So we moved to Halifax in the fall of 1969. And Richards was kind enough to participate in my career as a young artist. This is Richards, not me, dressed up as Marcel Duchamp's female persona, Rose C'est la Vie. But I didn't know what to do with his big fat artist hands, so I stuck them under the collar of the coat. This is a big piece called Composure, where I went through different emotions. Let's go to the next one. The next one is Misery. You can see Richard's taking a photo of me looking at myself into a mirror. And on the other side, you see a photo of me looking directly into the camera without the benefit of visual feedback. And I would venture to say that the image on the right is more miserable than the image on the left. So it is Intolerance. This is the beginning of a series of performance photo text documentations called Posturing. This one is Posturing Drag. And what I did was take a photo, well, actually Doug Waterman took this photo of me as a woman trying to look like a man who's trying to look like a woman. So I'm wearing a wig, I'm wearing false eyelashes, I'm wearing false fingernails. The only things that are not false in this picture are the boobs. I am a 25-year-old artist trying to look like a 50-year-old woman who is trying to look like she is 25. This is a piece called Posturing Age Transformation. This is a posturing piece called Butch, and in it I tried to get into men's rooms in Halifax without success at all. I was living in Halifax. I had not taken Diane Torr's course in passing. Diane Torr became a friend of mine when I moved to New York. And she said, the first thing you have to do is bind your boobs with an ace bandage. These are the roles that are held out to women. The photographs were taken by Victor Hayes. This is the goddess, the housewife, the working girl, the professional, the earth mother, and the lesbian. There's a text that, it refers to the whole piece. It says, at one time or another, I've tried them all on for size and none has fit. All that's left to do is to be an artist and point the finger at my own predicament. The artist operates in the vacuum left when all other values are rejected. This is a diptych called I Make Up the Image of My Perfection. This is as good as I can look using makeup. This is the other half of the diptych called I Make Up the Image of My Deformity, where I use makeup and actually camera angle and lighting to deform myself. Alan Comfort took this photograph in front of his refrigerator, and we did it well before Photoshop in 1974. Oh, this is a piece that I called Makeover, where I took photographs of women's features that I liked better than my own and pasted them over my face. We didn't have Photoshop. And here are the women whose features I liked better than my own. Richard Jardin, my beautiful artist boyfriend who looked like Marcel Duchamp, dumped me about 4 years in, four and a half years in. I had received an MA in English literature at Dalhousie University. I started working on a PhD. My thesis was not accepted. I asked Garry Neil Kennedy if I could have a job at the art college. He said, sure, the English teacher is leaving. You can teach English at the college. And so I was teaching English at the college and trying to be an artist. And then Richard stumped my ass. So I decided to move to New York to find out if I really was an artist or not. I had told Jerry Ferguson that I wanted to be an artist, and he had said, women don't make it in the art world. So I felt like I had to confront this problem and find out if I really was an artist or not. Moved to New York. There was zero feminist community in Halifax, but when I got to New York, I found all these other weirdos just like me. And consequently, in 1978, I started Disband, an all-girl band of women artists who couldn't play any instruments. We did have some tools, newspapers, songs, microphones, dances, rocking chair, flags, bed sheets, beers. At the end of Disband was active between 1978 and 1982. Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980. And at the end of Disband, we were the members of Ronald Reagan's cabinet. It was devastating to me that disbanded. So I decided to become Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan would say stuff like, my Nancy Reagan would say stuff like, cancer is the natural response to the environment. So I was performing as Nancy during the Reagan years. During the Clinton years, instead of doing Hillary, the first lady, I decided to do Tipper, the second lady, for the MTV inaugural ball of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came out on a causeway into a sea of youth, playing the saxophone. Ah, our president is playing the saxophone. This was the greatest thing these kids had ever seen. So after Bill came out, Hillary came out, and then after Hillary came out, Al came out, and then after Al came out, Tipper came out on this causeway. The mood in the room shifted, and the kids started booing her, and they booed her off the stage. Now, why did they do that? Because Tipper wanted parental advisory language on records and CDs to tell parents that these songs contain dirty words and you should not buy this for your children. I think there was a lawsuit with Frank Zappa. Anyway, this piece was in the window of Printed Matter. You see Tipper on the right, and on the left is Tipper's advice for the 90s, where she's basically saying, you should allow me to censor your work because if it's censored, it'll sell like hotcakes. Now we're going to play a video of me as Barbara Bush, mother of George W. Bush, 43rd President of the United States. Oh.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Bush, ex-First Lady of the United States, wife and confidant of George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st President of the United States, mother and confidant of Jeb Bush, ex-governor of the great state of Florida, mother and confidant of George W. Bush, 43rd President of the United States. If power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, I guess you might say I'm the sexiest woman in the free world. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm all washed up.
Now I've moved to New York and I've created a work called I Have Become My Own Worst Fear, which looks like the last image of a videotape that I made in Halifax in 1974 called Deformation, for which I used black and white grease pencil to deform my face. I was, a young woman. I had no wrinkles, but I gave myself wrinkles. And it's now shown as a companion piece. The video is shown with this image, which is on unstretched canvas. I forget how big it is, but it's pretty big. I want you to just flip through these, Jazz. This is a piece called Growing Old. I became an old lady and I decided to let my hair grow out gray. I had been a redhead since 1978, so literally half of my life by this point. I had been a redhead. I don't know when I turned gray, but I discovered as an old lady of a certain age with gray hair that I was being bumped into on the street. People, I became an invisible person. So I did a piece called Invisible. And another piece about Cruella de Vil, for which I dyed half of my hair red again. And the photographer said, "Are you going to keep it like that?" And I thought, yeah, I'm going to keep it like that, because people no longer bump into me on the street. This is a piece that I did in collaboration with Kathy Grove. She knows how to do Photoshop, and I don't. So she took the Mona Lisa, put Marge Simpson's hair on top, and then put my face in the middle. My friend Britta Wheeler said it was a portrait of postmodernism because the Mona Lisa is the highest of high art, Marge Simpson is the lowest of low art, and Martha's in the middle. This is another piece based on the previous one called Mona, Marcel, Marge. Marcel Duchamp famously put a mustache and a goatee on the Mona Lisa's face on a postcard that he found a postcard. This is a lenticular photograph. So as you walk past it, the mustache and the goatee appear and disappear. This piece is called New Wrinkles on the Subject. I hired a makeup artist to incise all of the marks of age that I had on my face. The company Lifestyle Lift is a facelift company, so I gave myself a facelift by hanging upside down. I was in a panda calendar, but none of the other 11 artists had the sense to make themselves up as pandas, but I did. I'm Going to Die is a piece that Bill Westmoreland helped me do. He did the makeup and he did the photography. The t-shirt was given to me by Lynn Tillman, one of my earliest friends in New York. I had slipped in the tub when I moved to Franklin Furnace. I renovated the space. I had one of those cast iron bathtubs. I had slipped in the tub. I didn't die. But I took her out for a drink and said, "Lynn, I'm going to die." And she said, "Martha, we're all going to die." And then she, for my birthday, gave me a black on black t-shirt, which I wore to death. This is a piece called Thump. Kathy Grove helped me with it. She used Trump's hair and the outline of his face and put my eyes, nose, and mouth in the middle. We were at Surrogate Court. Surrogate Court, the word force is really on the statue behind me, but there's another text that she photoshopped out of this image that says force should only be used in the most dire of circumstances. Now I'm going to talk about Franklin Furnace. You know, the artists who were invited to come in the visiting artist program to the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design were the conceptual artists of the day, from Vito Acconci to Lawrence Weiner, with Joseph Beuys and Jan Dibbets and some other Europeans thrown in there. I like Lawrence Weiner's statements as a kind of a starting image, because the cover says it cost $1.95. The idea being that the book is an artwork, but it's not a valuable artwork in the same way that a painting would be, or a sculpture. Then when you open the book and you read what's inside, this is the statement: one regular rectangular object placed across an international boundary, allowed to rest, then turned to and turned upon to intrude the portion of one country into the other. You can see that the word breaks are in the wrong places. He's turning language into sculpture. Very soon after Franklin Furnace was founded, an artist wanted to read from her artist book, and the performance art program was born. This is William Wegman and his dog Man Ray. I'm going to show the next slide, which is the video of this. We're not going to show the video, but basically it's the first line of everything that William Wegman ever wrote. And Man Ray had cues, but there were so many people in the room and he was so mesmerized by all the people, he missed all his cues. This is a piece by Jenny Holzer in the front window of Franklin Furnace. It's her truisms. The truism would be, a good man is hard to find, for example. Mike Glear, her husband, is on the step ladder taking a picture of a hole in a plate glass window caused by a nut, a really big nut. Somebody drove down the street and threw a nut right through the window. And it went through the phrase, boredom makes you do crazy things. Franklin Furnace was founded to collect artist books. We consider this to be a book, even though it is actually a postcard. Eleanor Antin published the Adventures of the 100 Boots as a monthly series that she would then mail out to her mailing list. So the book consists of a time-based object in both the physical way and a literal way, in that you received it over time. This is a book by Conrad Gleber, shrink wrapped. It's got male meat and female meat. It's called Meat Book. Barbara Kruger famously uses text as image, or combines text with image. Suzanne Lacey's Rape is held together by this button, so you have to rape the book in order to open it. This is Bruce Naumann's book called Lair, L-A-A-I-R, Photographs of Los Angeles Air. Ken O'Hara's One is 500 pages with faces on both sides of all those pages. So you see 1,000 images of people, black, white, young, old, male, female. And after you've gone through this book, you recognize we are all one. Klaus Oldenburg's Ray Gun comics were published on a Gestetner machine, probably on paper left over from Vietnam War protests, in the basement of Judson Memorial Church. Then they were stapled together, and these ephemeral objects were probably the most valuable objects in our entire collection of artist books. Dieter Roh's Bach 3B and Bach 3D consisted of comic book pages punched full of holes, Swiss cheese holes. He was born in Switzerland, bound right side up and upside down. This is Ed Ruscha's Every Building on the Sunset Strip, an accordion book that folds out to be 14 feet long. And it is literally photographs of every building on the Sunset Strip. And this we consider to be a book, even though it's a set of condoms by Daniel Martinez. Obscene is, question mark. It was published during the AIDS crisis in New York. Franklin Furnace was founded to collect, exhibit, and preserve artist books. By 1980, I figured out that the uptown community of museums was not really paying any attention to what the downtown community was doing with regard to temporary installation, performance art, and publications. So fine. So we started publishing our own magazine, The Flue, Franklin Furnace Flue. This one, it contains an interview with Charles Henry Ford related to the Page as Alternative Space, which was an exhibition we were holding for the entire year. This issue was designed by Barbara Kruger, and it contains a work in the centerfold, an appropriation of text by Alberto Moravia by Barbara Kruger, Louise Lawler, and Sherry Levine. Alberto Moravia's publisher, Simon & Schuster, found out about this work and sent Franklin Furnace a bill for $50 because it was more than the allowable amount of text that you could publish for free. Consequently, this issue of The Flue was published on newsprint. You know, we didn't have that much money. And if you're thinking of starting your own art space, I want to advise you not to publish on newsprint. You can see it's getting yellow, and these issues of The Flue have to be deacidified. We're up to 1981. This is the Art Workers Coalition. Well, the show, let me talk about the show first. The show was called LA London Lab, and the objective of the show was to bring feminists from Los Angeles and feminists from London together in New York to compare their work and to collaborate perhaps in, this is the feminist art workers in a piece called Heaven or Hell. They discover they have to collaborate because their forks are too long for them to feed themselves. The feminist art workers are from LA. This is Rose English, who is from London, doing a piece about the Actor's Handbook and how it is a sexist document. Tina Keane, also from London, is in the crib. One of the monitors is playing a tape of women from age 3 to age 80, and the other one is showing a video image of the audience that was in the space, and it's a piece about the entrapment of being born female. Leslie Labowitz is underneath the for sale sign that you can see on the bean sprouts. At the bottom of the frame, you see a bed of earth. She starts the performance in darkness, explaining that her childhood was filled with images of death because her parents were Auschwitz survivors. So when she became an adult, she decided to make her art out of life. She started a bean sprout business. And you can see Sprout Man is playing music all the way to the right there. At the end of this performance, she sold her business to somebody in the audience. Ana Mendieta, Body Tracks, 1982, was a performance that was silent and ritualistic. Tei-Ching Hsieh, artist who jumped ship when it was in Philadelphia and then took a cab to New York, started doing 1-year performances. His first 1-year performance was to live in a cage for 1 year without reading matter, without a radio, without a TV. He slept and ate and lived in a cage for 1 year. The second one was to punch a time clock every hour for 1 year. This is his third 1-year performance living outside. These are photos of summer, winter, spring, and fall, taking shade, living outside. These are the clothes that he wore when he lived outside for 1 year. And these are 365 maps of Lower Manhattan, where he slept, where he washed in a fire hydrant, where he walked for 1 year. So Franklin Furness was merely helping to invent what we now call postmodernism. We accepted proposals from the art field and then got a panel of artists together to select them. This was a proposal from a collective of 9 women artists and activists who are interspersed here with porn stars, which I'll get to in a minute. The Carnival Knowledge Show asked if there could be such a thing as feminist pornography. Could there be such a thing as feminist pornography? In other words, pornography that does not denigrate women and children. It contained artist books, it contained drawings, it contained audio, it contained installation work. This is a performance called Deep Inside Porn Stars that was actual porn stars talking about their lives. One of the porn stars, the one with the fifth from the left, she's got a teddy bear on her lap. That's Annie Sprinkle. At this performance in 1984, January of 1984, Annie Sprinkle, porn star, decided, you know, I think I'd rather be a performance artist. And she remains a performance artist today. What I liked about her performance so much, Annie Sprinkle talked about being a fat girl from Southern California and a voluptuous porn star who lives in New York. In other words, the dual citizenship that we all hold in self-love and self-loathing. These are the porn stars mooning the audience. We also had mud wrestling as part of the show. We also had saxophone dancing. The boobs would waft across your face as you went down into the basement. And we were discovered. This is the beginning of the culture wars. We were found by a group called the Morality Action Committee, and they picketed the organization. Actually, they waited until the show was over. And then they started writing postcards to all of our funders to say that we had shown pornography to 500 children per day. And all I really had to defend myself was the slides you just saw, images of the work that the artists proposed didn't denigrate women or children. It was, you know, pornography that didn't denigrate women or children. But in the course of the culture wars, I believe the religious right won. And they won with an idea that is on one of the signs in this slide, that the sign says your taxes for religious bigotry, but the phrase that ultimately won, I think, is no tax dollars for obscene art. And what we had to defend ourselves was artists deserve the right to freedom of expression under the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which is kind of longer and didn't, it didn't work. Well, now we're gonna keep going. Karen Finley will enter into the story pretty soon. This is a 10th birthday party for Franklin Furness. We're up to 1986 now. These are the Kipper kids doing abstract expressionist performance art, and it's only 3 minutes. So Jazz, would you be kind enough to play the whole thing? Uh-oh.
Sorry, I shut mine up. First. Wait a minute.
No.
Oh, right, sorry.
You've got to smell the armpits first, don't you?
Right. Good going, isn't it?
You got it?
All right. How's your dad? All right?
He's all right. How's your mum?
Oh, not too bad.
Hey!
Bloody cheeks.
It popped.
Go on then.
Now keep your head still. Keep your head still.
Keep your head still. Let's do it.
Right, thank you very much.
That video was by Canadian artist Susan Britton. Franklin Furnace presented performance artists on the Staten Island Ferry for a program called Live on the Bounding Main. This is a piece about Nelson Mandela, who was in solitary confinement at the time. It's 10,000 Mandelas. There aren't really 10,000 Mandelas there, but they are barbed wired. There are Xerox spaces of Nelson Mandela that are barbed wired to the front of the storefront. It's a piece by Willie Cole, and what he did for the audio portion was broadcast out on the street, Mandela, 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 Mandela. So by the 90s, the 80s, somewhere in the 80s, the end of the 80s, I realized that the uptown institutions were not only not paying attention to what artists were doing now, but they were not paying attention to the history of the artist book either. So I started to do historical shows. This was curated by Jaroslav Andel. We didn't own any of this material. We borrowed it from private collections and museums. And it included a work of art that I believe spawned the contemporary art movement that we participate in today. Stéphane Mallarmé wrote a poem called Un coup de dé jamais n'abolira le hasard. A throw of the dice will never eliminate chance. And he had the type set in different sizes and in different placements on blank pages of the publication, allowing the viewer to decide the order of the text and introducing interactivity. The relationship of the artist to the audience is directly implied by this work. This work was discussed in Parisian Cafe Society by everybody, not just the poets, but also the painters, also the musicians, also the theater artists. Everybody was discussing what it means to create a work of art that is interactive in nature. Now we're up to Karen Finley. This is not her performing at Franklin Furnace. She's performing here at the kitchen. She smears her boobs with chocolate frosting. She drops glitter over them and then bean sprouts on top. after this performance, she was branded by conservative columnists Evans and Novak as the chocolate-smeared young woman. But what I think really pissed them off is the Woolworth underpants and the tube socks, which resist the male gaze. So then Karen had emerged as a performance artist, but she made the case to my peer review panel that she had not emerged as a visual artist. So we selected her proposal for a show called A Woman's Life Isn't Worth Much. This is the story of Aunt Mandy, who died of an illegal abortion. This is a piece called Why Can't This Veal Calf Walk? As you can see, it's painted directly on the wall. All the work was painted directly on the wall, and it talks about what it's like to be a woman. This close-up shows that if you don't shave your legs, no one will like you. Smooth is what men like. So Karen Finley was being called an obscene artist by the religious right in the United States. I called John Frohnmeyer. John Frohnmeyer was the director of the National Endowment for the Arts at the time, and invited him to come to Franklin Furnace and see that Karen Finley's work is not obscene. However, he declined. This is Pobell, a piece for which he, wearing jockey shorts only, smears his black skin with mayonnaise in an effort to turn white. What I'm going to do now is read what he wrote, what he said. I asked him about his choice of materials, and he cited the futility of attempting to reconstruct one's social condition. What is brownness as opposed to whiteness? Mayonnaise gave me a quirky material means to deal with issues Black people claim they don't value very much, e.g. whiteness. On the monitor, you see him crawling through the gutter of Tompkins Square Park. I'm going to show you more pictures. Oh, that was the installation shot at Franklin Furnace. This is him crawling in the gutter around Tompkins Square Park. But you can see that he's wearing a very nice three-piece suit, and he has a little flower pot in his hands. If he were wearing rags and crawling in the gutter, we would say to ourselves, oh, he's a homeless guy. But here's this Black man wearing a very nice three-piece suit and crawling in the gutter, which was very distressing to some Black people who were on the scene. Get up! You know, why are you denigrating the image of Black people? And in fact, what he's doing is examining the image that Black people throw out into the world. So now we're still in the culture wars, but we got a proposal for the Lesbian Museum, 10,000 Years of Penis Envy, a show of dildos. It was curated by Nicole Eisenman and Christine Martin, who is a sex worker, and it consisted of historical and contemporary dildos. We decided, even though we might be closed down, we should do the show because if you can't laugh, you're going to die. And we didn't get closed down. This is Shirin Nishat's first solo exhibition in New York. It's called Unveiling. And what I liked so much about looking at these images is that if you're familiar with her mature work, in these early images, we can see the roots of all of her mature concerns today. This is a piece by Dolores Zoragueta. Dolores was born in Argentina. It's a piece about the disappeared of Argentina. It's thigh-sized cocoons covered in Band-Aids, hung on monofilament. And what was so effective about this piece was the very slight movement of these cocoons hanging on monofilament made me, and among other people, feel nauseous. This is Dan Perjovsky's piece, for which he showed up at the gallery every single day during the run of his show, and drew 2-inch by 2-inch portraits on the wall, thousands and thousands of 2-inch by 2-inch portraits on the wall, day after day. He showed up at the gallery and drew these portraits. Then, December 1st, the last day of his show, and the first time that Day Without Art was celebrated by the art world, to mourn the devastation of the AIDS virus on the art world, he showed up at Franklin Furnace and he erased his show. Now we're still in the culture wars. It's the end of the 90s. The internet has been invented, and we're starting to think about where the next zone of freedom of expression is going to lie. And at this point, we're preparing to go virtual, but before we leave the physical realm, we did this show called Voyeur's Delight. This is a piece by Jocelyn Taylor that consists of a mirrored floor. So if you are wearing a skirt and you walk into her installation, we can look up your skirt. And then when you look at the monitors that are embedded in the floor, we realize, oh, we're looking up her vagina. There's a speculum in her vagina. It's a piece about the invasive quality of Western medical science on the bodies of women. This is the last physical show in Franklin Furnace. On the left is a wall drawing by Sol LeWitt. On the right, you see posters by the Guerrilla Girls. In the back is Louise Lawler. There's a computer monitor that goes to the site for thing.net. The piece was called, what is it called? In the Flow, Alternate Authoring Strategies. It was curated by Daniel Georges. And it's about how art had changed from solid to liquid collaboration among the artist and maybe other people. In the case of Sol LeWitt, very simply, he gave his instructions to the fabricators who had to do the wall drawing for him. In the case of one of the pieces was a collaboration with people in a bar. The Guerrilla Girl, Louise Lawler's work consists of images of other people's lives and works of art. So In the Flow, Alternate Authoring Strategies also was the first form of our website. Franklin Furnace's website became its public face. We wanted to make sure that Jocelyn Taylor's intention was exhibited along with the image of a speculum up her vagina. We started collaborating with a .com, pseudo.com, to present performance art on the internet. Pseudo was founded the idea was it was a television station on the internet. This is the very first performance artwork we ever presented on the internet by Helena Hilberts, for which she walks up to the camera and she's got all this hair, and then she turns around and it kind of obscures the image. And then she walks into the loft, then she walks up to the camera, then she walks into the loft, then she walks up to the camera, then she walks into the loft. This goes on for 50 minutes. And you're thinking, what is she doing? What she's doing is describing the new outlines of performance art, because the performance is filmed in real time, but then it's put on the server of pseudo.com, and it can be pulled for the next 6 months. It was on the server of pseudo.com, and it can be pulled down from wherever you have an internet connection in New Zealand. So suddenly the outlines of real time and space where performance art has been happening have dramatically altered. The artists who were collaborating with Pseudo wanted to use technologies that were sometimes not available. This is an example of one. This is a collaboration we did in collaboration with the kitchen. We're going to play the video for this. It's Andrea Pulley's Rapid Fire was produced with software invented by the Department of Defense. In a minute, you're going to see her eye on the back wall of the kitchen. If you've ever been to the kitchen, it's a gigantic space. Is it playing? Okay, here we go. She's got a camera pointed at her eyeball, again, using software developed by the Department of Defense to make music with her eye movements. In a minute, you're going to see her eye projected on the back wall of the kitchen and hear music caused by voluntary and involuntary movements of her eyeball. Thank you, Dan. This is the first and only 100% virtual performance artwork created for Franklin Furnace. Jack Waters invented a game called Super Schmoozio, the game of the art world. Avatars run by people from all over the world meet in the art world environment. This is a virtual gallery space, and interact with each other. The idea being that the game of the art world, you don't know if the person you're talking to is actually a real dealer or who it is. The game of the art world requires you to stab other people in the back in order to advance your art career. Ricardo Miranda Zuniga is on the left. He found a shopping cart and he turned it into a radio station. This is a piece about the original form of radio, which used to be a two-way medium. Now it only goes in one direction, unless you're a truck driver. And so this is a radio station that he wheeled around to public parks and allowed people to broadcast their ideas. Okay, we're going to play this tape too. This is Joshua Kinberg and Yuri Gitman's Bikes Against Bush. The bike is attached. There's a machine. They invented a machine which is put on the back of the bike. It is attached to a cell phone that's on the handlebars. People send text messages to the cell phone on the handlebars, and then those text messages are sprayed in chalk on the sidewalk by the machine. The idea was that they were going to protest the Republican National Convention in New York in 2004. But Mayor Bloomberg decided to prophylactically arrest the artists and activists who were protesting the Republican National Convention in New York. So in a minute, you're going to see Joshua Kinberg being arrested, but Yuri Gitman was on the scene with his camera. He captured the whole incident. The bike was impounded and then lost, but the bomb squad called Joshua Kinberg later and contacted now Franklin Furnace is showing in England. This is a piece by an artist, performance artist and sociologist, Rita Wheeler, for which she looked at the question, what is live art? What is performance art? What is avant-garde art? What is an institution? What is the relationship of live art to the institution of art? And then she analyzed issues of High Performance magazine in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s to see how the concerns of the avant-garde art world had evolved and changed in the last several decades. Now we are 30 years old. Franklin Furnace has turned 30. We've accepted a proposal from Martin Rosengard and Sixten Kai Nielsen. Their company is called Wooloo Productions. They're Danish. The idea was that foreign artists would apply to Wooloo Productions for permission to come to New York and live in a cell that you can see is mask being taped out on the floor. And if they won a competition, they would get a meeting with an attorney to get an O1 visa, which is the legal way you can stay and work and live in the United States. So the artist who won is, I think we should play this. It's very short. Let's play this. The artist who won cajoled masking tape out of some viewers who came, some observers who came to the gallery. And then she masking taped herself out of the front door of the gallery. And she got, there she is, and she got the meeting with the attorney to get an O1 visa. This performance is Rashad Newsom's shade compositions, and it's a concert of mouth sounds that he's conducting with a hacked wee, is it a wee? Yes, it's a Nintendo Wii game controller. This performance, Wayne Hodge, the original comedy, takes off from an antique film that shows a Black man dressed as a monkey. Now we're up to Maria Yoon, the Korean bride. Maria, as she approached her 35th birthday, understood that in Korea, anyway, you're considered to be too old to be marriageable and over the hill if you turn 35. So as this date was approaching, she made an effort to get married in all 50 states of the United States. Her 50th wedding happened in Times Square, including her 9-year journey of Maria Yoon, the Korean bride, in 2008. All right, I want to play this. This is a piece by Fred Scott called Money to Burn. It's a performance that happened on Wall Street in front of the stock exchange. He's burning his grant money from Franklin Furnace. We met with an attorney before his performance because he was burning money, and case law has gone in two directions on this. It's either freedom of expression or it's destruction of federal property. Also, the attorney said, if you're accused of arson, you'll be thrown in jail without a moment's hesitation. So we had a bucket of sand, a bucket of water, and you'll see Martha Wilson in a purple top handing a sheet of paper to people in the audience so they understand this is a work of performance art and not just arson. He burnt money in front of the stock exchange, And we expected the cops to show up. They took him, though, about 20 minutes before the cops showed up. And they didn't know what to do to arrest him. So the first two cops called two more cops, and then the two more cops called two more cops, including a sergeant. And they finally arrested him for public nuisance, for being a public nuisance. They told him he had to stop burning money. He said, okay, fine. But as he was walking back to the subway, he kept singing, money to burn, money to burn. Oh, where am I? Oh, I think we're in Times Square now. This is Liz Magic Laser, who's doing 23 foot chases from popular films that utilize stairs. Scenes were collaged and restaged in the midst of a live audience on a grand staircase that serves as the roof of the tickets booth in Times Square. All right, we're gonna, I think I'd like to end it, Jazz, with this piece and then go to the questions. This is Chin Chi Yang's Kill Me or Change, 2012. Chin Chi Yang gathered 30,000 empty aluminum cans and put them in a globe of sorts, and then dumped them on his head in front of the Unisphere in Flushing Meadows Park, New York, to dramatize our culture of waste. Why 30,000 cans? Because you in your lifetime will probably use 30,000 aluminum cans. Let's go to the videotape. One thing I really liked about this performance was that regular people came, the art world came. You see all those people behind the tape. There's art moms, there's wholesalers, there's regular folks who go to the park. They wanted to know what is this? What is this guy burying himself in aluminum cans? Also, the piece is called Kill Me or Change. We didn't know if he was going to die. So there was an ambulance corps over on the side at the ready in case he got into serious trouble. And at the end of the performance, he swims out of the pile of aluminum cans and he cut his hand on one of the aluminum cans. And the ambulance corps was delighted because they knew how to fix that. The end.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to jump back on here. I'd love to extend a huge thank you, Martha Wilson, for your wonderful and engaging talk today. Thank you so much for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Griffin Project.
And before I hang up, I just wanted to mention that Griffin has a number of upcoming public programs and virtual events. So be sure to check out our website with all of the information on our upcoming events and registration links as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, Griffin is open on Saturdays from noon till 5 p.m. So please do stop by and check out our current exhibition.